Hi, I thought I'd try a different location for my filming today. We'll see how this works out. Interesting thing here is a question: how reliable, how accurate are bottle label descriptions or wine descriptions in general? So I've pulled a few together. I try to add these description type things to the wine that I sell in the store here. And just to give you an example, here's one of my little cards. I got, the name of the wine, the type, some information like that, and the pricing, of course, down here. And then this little paragraph in here is basically description. We'll get to that one in a moment. But first of all, we've got a little Pinot Grigio here. And if you're not familiar with Pinot Grigio, well, I've got a little bottle here. If I can see the label well enough, don't have my glasses with me, we'll get a description of it. I'm going to take a quick sample here. Okay, first of all, this is a Pinot Grigio out of Italy, and let's see what it has to say. All right. Okay, apparently the winemaker is talking a little bit about the trip and talking a little bit about going to wherever it's at. He says, I especially want to tell you to try this amazing, tasty Pinot Grigio. It is a dry white wine and is perfect with appetizers, seafood, chicken, cheese, and name some other things in here. Okay, so to me that's a fairly decent bottle description. Okay, it's Pinot Grigio. If you know what Pinot Grigio is, you know what to expect. And then it gives you a few things it pairs well with. I think that's a good thing. When I look at a bottle of wine, if I'm totally unfamiliar with it, I'd look to see if it's on the bottle or on some other description nearby, like on the shelf label or something like that. What I'm looking for is something that really tells me about the wine. And let's see, I thought I pulled it. Okay, don't have the shelf tag on this one, but give you the description off the bottle, so not bad. Some of the things I look for is if it's a single varietal, I don't really care for them to tell me that it's got notes of this or that or the other. Yeah, it's like, if I've had it before, I already know I know what to expect. I do like to know sometimes what the tannins are like, things like that, the body, is it a real heavy body, is it a light body, things of those sort. That's what I personally look for. But let's just go through a couple of these. I just pulled some at random off the shelf, and when I create these things, I basically just go to the internet and look them up, and if possible, I go to the producer's webpage and pull their descriptions off. Now, some of them I find absolutely funny, and I try and edit those down too so they're not quite so amusing in that sense to me. And I'm talking funny ridiculous. But let's try this one. This is, I'll just read you the description. This is mostly off their page on the internet. A subtle oakiness. Okay, a subtle oakiness dominates this medium to full body Pinot Noir. Okay, so it's a Pinot Noir. I've already got that on the label. It's on the bottle. That's easy to tell. But they kind of reiterate it. So medium to full bodied, that's a good thing to know. If you're looking for a definite full bodied, full on, crush your palate with its weight type wine, well, you know this isn't going to be it. Full to medium, so that's probably going to be more on the medium than the full side. And let's see, earthy cherry and strawberry flavors with tones of vanilla and smooth, silky tannins. Okay, a couple things in there. First of all, cherry, strawberry flavors, those are typical of Pinot Noir. So what that would tell me just right there, those are common characteristics you'd expect, or flavor notes you'd expect in a Pinot Noir. So it's telling me it's kind of true to form. It's not some offbeat, peculiar style of Pinot Noir that I've never heard of or never want to hear of type thing. So it's true to form. The notes of vanilla. Honestly, and this is another thing too, everyone's taste is different. I do not taste vanilla hardly ever in anything. It's like every once in a while I'll get it, but that's just my palate. I don't taste vanilla. I'm kind of like taste blind in that sense. But this one says, okay, tones of vanilla. Vanilla usually implies that it has some oak aging. And let's see, then it goes on to say the smooth, silky tannins. Okay, so it's not a really rough tannic finish. It's going to be a lot smoother than that. So good to know. Very likely, possibly, it's going to be French oak, but no guarantees on that. And then it says, we have enjoyed this wine with pork tenderloin, ribs, aged cheese, venison, and an afternoon BLT. BLT, bacon, lettuce, tomato, for those who aren't familiar with it. So again, it's giving some food pairings. All right, so I'm the random customer who comes in. I'm looking for a wine to go with dinner. I kind of know that I want a Pinot. I want a Pinot that I'm familiar with in the sense of its overall flavor profile. So I could read this and say, yeah, that sounds pretty much like what I'm looking for. It fits those things. I'm actually, serving pork tenderloin for dinner, so that would go well with it. According to this, it goes well. So that I would consider a fairly decent description. Let's pull another one. This is another type of thing that I like to know for sure. This particular one is a blend, a red blend. So what is it a blend of? If it's a blend of Tempranillo and artichoke juice or something, I'm probably not going to like it. If it's a blend of other grapes that go well together, then that tells me something too. And artichoke juice, I just made that up. So here we have a blend of Syrah, Petit Syrah, Mourvedre, Grenache, and Viognier. Okay, so interesting grapes. I like that. This one happens to be from Central Coast, California. So that tells me it's going to be a little bit jammier, fruitier. It's in a little bit warmer climate than you would have in further up north in Sonoma, Napa, and beyond. So gets lots of sun, longer growing season, so fully ripe grapes to make this. And the blend of Syrah, Petit Syrah is a good blend. Mourvedre is typically known outside of the U.S. as a Rhone varietal, and you also find some in Spain under a different name. I want to say Monastral. Don't quote me on that one. But and then Grenache, again a red blending grape. Mourvedre and Grenache both are grapes that, along with Syrah, that you would find in the Côte du Rhône Valley in France. And then the last one, Viognier. Viognier is typically made as a white, but it can be blended in with reds. It kind of mellows out and gets a little bit more body to some wines, a little bit tones it down, evens it out. I would say in a blend, it's got its place, but it's a little hard to define. Or at least it's hard for me to define. Okay, so again, Central Coast, Mourvedre is not well known there. The others somewhat. And let's see, okay, it goes on to say a full-bodied wine that offers rich notes of blackberries, smoked meats, and espresso. Drink the approachable wine now or age it over the next 5 years. Okay, so it's giving you an idea of the body, a little bit of smokiness, again implying some aging in barrels, possibly with a little toast on the barrel, a little smokiness there. And going well with blackberries. I guess, I'm sorry, it says smoked meats, not smokiness in the wine. But smoked meats, you need something that's big enough to compete with a smoked meat. If you're doing if you're smoking a brisket, for example, that you're gonna have a lot of flavor in that brisket. You can't just do a light, wimpy wine. So this is basically saying it works well with those types of things. And espresso, of course, is a very, very strong form of coffee. So it's definitely got big flavor, and so you want to pair that with something that's going to stand up to it. And let's see, then it goes on to say a nice thing to know, drink it now or lay it down for 5 years. So this is one that you can safely age for a while. A lot of wines that you go into a typical wine store like my own, a lot of those wines you buy the bottle, take it home, open it up and drink it right away, or within a few weeks or months or so. It's not typical to have these stored in the cellar, the wine cellar, or the basement, or wherever you store your wine for a long, long time. Most of these wines are not made to hold up for long aging. But this one says, yeah, you can lay it down for a few years and it'll still be fine. Good to know. Okay, let's try and pull another one of these out of here. This one is a Spanish wine. We have here, it's a Grenache, single varietal in this case. So the description we have, the black cherry and blackberry flavors have a gumdrop character in this ripe red but lively acidity and light brisk tannins imparted impart freshness. Pair with red meats, poultry, stews, and cheeses. Okay, I'm hesitant a bit because I have not got my reading glasses on. I didn't even think about that when I sat down, so bear with me if I stumble a bit. Okay, so blackberry or black cherry and blackberry, those are typical things that you could find in a Grenache. Moving on, have flavors of a gumdrop character. That one kind of bothers me. Actually, if I were to redo this label, I would probably leave that out, resample it. This is a very good wine, by the way. It's just I would not describe any wine, any serious wine, as having anything to do with gumdrops. That's an American candy, if you're not familiar with it. It's kind of like a little jelly, chewy thing with a rock sugar coating on the outside. They're tasty for candy, but very sweet, very sugary, and very, very fruity in a not wine way. So gumdrop, I don't think is a good descriptor. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't use that. Then it talks about this ripe red, lively acidity and light brisk tannins. Okay, acidity, yeah, it needs a little bit of acidity, keep it from being flabby, which is kind of flat tasting. So a little bit of acidity in here is good. And then light brisk tannins. I'm not exactly sure what brisk tannins would be. So would that be overly tannic to some people? It's not soft tannins if it's brisk. So it's kind of, I'm not sure how to take that, just reading it off the label. I do know that it's a very good wine, but again, the descriptions. And these are generally from the websites of the producers of these wines. Let's move on. Here's a white one. We haven't done a white. Well, I guess I started with a white one. This one is my German is not great, so if I say this wrong, don't persecute me. Grüner Veltliner, and it's out of Austria. Okay, so here we have one. It says light yellow color with green tints. Okay, a lot of times, and this is an example of that, you've got the bottle there, you can see what color it is. Reds tend to be in darker bottles, but sometimes describing in color I think is kind of extraneous. When I'm doing these things, sometimes that's about all I can get out of the descriptions I find, so I put it in there. Okay, the wine offers apple and pear fruits on the nose, dry, fresh, earthy, and with some hints of apple and apricot on the palate. Excuse me. Completed by a really refreshing acidity on the finish. Okay, again, everyone's taste is a little different, so I rarely taste apple in any of the wines I try, no matter how many times they say it on the description. So again, that's probably me. Some people, I've had people, I'll ask them as they're tasting. I'll say, well, so what do you taste in that? And I've had, apple, green apple come up quite often in different tastings. I generally don't taste that, and I am a big apple fan. I love to eat apples, especially the really sour Granny Smith, which is a big green apple. I mean, it's meant to be green when it's ripe. Nice sourness to it. So I've rarely, if ever, tasted anything like that in a wine. I do taste other things, but that's not that. Okay, so they're talking about apple and pear on the nose. Pear is kind of one of those things that's when I smell it, I know it. I rarely smell it in a wine. If I smell it in actual pear, then yeah, that one's just, oh yeah, that's pear. I know that one. But I really get that in wines when it has pear in the descriptor. Okay, so then they're talking in the taste, earthiness with some hints of apple and apricot. Don't agree with that. To me, it's this particular one. I do like it a lot too. It's very nice, easy drinking white wine. It's to me, if anything, it's got a little bit of citrus in it, and I wouldn't even nail it down to a specific one. But kind of be a lemon lime type citrus flavor to me. That one, it's not even mentioned in the descriptor. So anyway, it's kind of to answer the original question. How good are the bottle descriptions? I would say you have to take them with a grain of salt, or a few drops of wine, I guess. Really, it's up to your individual palate. If they indicate things about some of its production qualities, for example, it was aged for 2 years in oak, or the tannins are strong, the tannins are this, the tannins are that, high acidity, low acidity, full-bodied, light-bodied. those are the types of things that tend to be a little bit more accurate. When they start describing the flavors, that's very, very subjective. And a really good case in point, I mean, the descriptions, when they're done by the producer, manufacturer, whatever, are usually done, of course, to sell the wine. They're not going to say this wine tastes like dirt. They're going to say it has earthy qualities. You know, what does that really mean? It tastes like dirt? Maybe, maybe not. So it's left up to your individual interpretation. But really good example of this. Some people don't even know what they're talking about when they make these things up. Or if they do know, the people that are relaying it after the fact don't know. A few years ago, I took a trip with some friends to California, and one of the descriptors we ran across frequently was flavors of brambleberry. I'm being from the Midwest, familiar with most types of berries that are grown. Some grow here, some don't, or a lot grow here, but some don't. And also very familiar with brambles. Brambles, if you're not familiar with them, are basically kind of woody stalks that have thorns on them. Think of a rosebush stem. And they're not rose bushes or rose family, but it would be kind of like a rosebush stem if you're more familiar with that. And you'll find them out in the woodsy areas a lot of times, and often they do have berries on them. Typically something like a blackberry, raspberry, boysenberry, I think have thorns as well. So, our friends and I were all talking about that. Well, what exactly is a brambleberry? Have you ever had one? I've never even seen one. What do they look like? And none of us really knew what that was. So, of course, what do? Whip out the phone and, hey Google, what's a brambleberry? Well, it turns out, if you look it up, brambleberry is just kind of a general term for berries that grow on thorny bushes. Raspberries, blackberries, boysenberries, and so on. So exactly the same thing that you would find in brambles, except they're referring to the berries that are produced off these brambles. So after that, we just decided, okay, it could be a mix of berries, basically. So after that, the next time we encountered it, with one of our tasting hosts telling us about the flavors, and they mentioned brambleberry. So being the devilish types that we said, oh, what exactly is a brambleberry? And then we just sat back with straight faces and listened to them flounder, trying to tell us what a brambleberry was. Even to the point of telling us, yes, my grandmother used to make brambleberry pie, and it was really, really good. Oh, what did it taste like? Well, it was sort of like raspberries, maybe a little different than raspberries. They would say these things. And of course, we just laughed. Ultimately, we laughed. We tried not to embarrass them too much, but it was fun. And again, you have to have fun when you're doing wine tastings and things. So you see brambleberry on a label or a description. It's just talking about any of the family of berries that grow on thorny bushes. So anyway, to sum this up, there are some things that you'll find on labels that I would trust and go by if you're looking just at the flavors, flavor of coffee, flavor of this. Those are very subjective, and you may or may not taste them yourself. I generally don't taste a lot of those. I mean, if they talk about dark cherries, cherry I taste very well. I will say that, and if that's one of the descriptors, that one I would probably taste. Often I will taste cherries that aren't in, when it doesn't say anything about it in the description. Some of the others, some smokiness, that's one that I would trust somewhat. I do definitely go with, if they're talking about pairings, it goes well with this food or that food, or if it's, very acidic, light acidity, any reference to acidity I pay attention to. References specifically to oak or tannin and aging, those I pay attention to. So those are some of the things that I would trust on a label description. Other ones I just kind of glance over. It's like, no, don't try and tell me it tastes like melon, because melons it depends on which one you're talking about. Cantaloupe and watermelon taste very different to me. I think they do to most people. So without being very specific about which melon, I don't trust that as a descriptor. But anyway, so I hope that helps you out when you're looking at wine bottles and labels in stores or online or anything. My best recommendation, if at all possible, try it before you buy it. It's always better to sample a wine and then buy it, or sample a wine and decide, no, I don't like that, and look for something else. So, hope that helps, and I just want to further add. If you have any questions that you'd like me to answer in a future video or recommendations for a future video, please send them to me at WindDownQA@gmail.com. And that will be in the description down below, and I will have it on the end card as well. So thanks a lot, enjoy wine, and cheers.